Hey YouTube, I just wanted to make a quick video update. Resident Evil 6 comes in a few days. I guess now we could say what, 3 days from now, maybe 4, depending on how you want to look at it. I can't wait, I'm excited. The game is going to feel like 4 games in one. It's going to be like 4 games in 1. Now before people start going, what do you mean 4? I thought there was only 3 stories. There's actually 4, but the 4th story is an unlockable. By now, a lot of people know, but for those that don't, I'm just, getting them up to speed with that news. The 4th story is actually Ada's story in the game, and it will be a single player story. In terms of stories, though, like, the way things are going, this one will definitely be a lot about Ada, so we're gonna hear a lot more of her story this time around. But it also looks like they're setting up the other characters for some stuff. Like Leon, he's there once again just to help whoever is in trouble. Like he's always there to help, anyone else that's just in trouble. And it looks like that's happening again with Helena this time. Jake and Sherry, it looks more or less like they're being set up to be, the next generation of characters, especially since they're at the center of all the madness. Like, they don't know that they're, helping the bad guy in a sense, because that's pretty much how it was in the very first Resident Evil. Like, the two, unsuspecting protagonists didn't know they were helping the bad guy all along. So more or less, Resident Evil 6 has that going on once again. In terms of the gameplay, though, now, Jake and Sherry, they'll be more or less Resident Evil 3 inspired. So they'll have some environmental hazards, having to make some kind of life decisions, and then they'll have, their nemesis being the Ustanag chasing them. They'll have to hide, they'll have to run. He's pretty much the equivalent of Nemesis from Resident Evil 3. Only he's their Nemesis. And Nemesis was pretty much like the equivalent of a serial killer. So Michael Myers, Freddy Krueger, Jason, something like that. So there's what story will be like a survival horror story mixed with some action elements due to the fact that their combat style is mostly based around melee. Like, yes, they can still use guns, but melee works best for them since they're both the superpowered characters in the game. These are the only two superpowered characters due to the fact that Jake is, Albert Wesker's son. So he has his blood type and maybe a type of virus. I know, well, yeah, definitely he has a type of virus. But his blood could be the key to everything. That's as much as, videos, previews, and all have shown us. Sherry, she's powerful and she has some auto healing abilities due to the fact that she was infected with the G virus in Resident Evil 2. Yes, Sherry is from Resident Evil 2. She was 12 years old in that game. For those of you that don't know or that didn't even, play through the original storyline, which was Claire A and Leon B, Sherry was infected with the G virus by her own father, who was the main monster of Resident Evil 2. They only ran into each other if you played the original story. If you played Leon A and Claire B, that's the alternate story. They never bump into each other, so she never gets infected. Chris, his story more or less, he's out for revenge, for the people that died alongside him when he went to go on one mission in Europe sometime before the events of the main story take place. So he's after Ada, or who he believes to be Ada, to just get revenge. But more or less, I can't say whether or not he'll, be in the next game or not, because it looks like something might go on, but so far his story looks like it doesn't have much to do with the overall story of the game. It just, I mean, it does in terms of adventure, but in terms of will he carry over into another game, we'll have to wait and see. And judging by his profile, it says that he is training Pierce Nevins, his partner in the game, so that he can take over, when Chris retires. So Chris is planning to retire sometime soon. Leon, of course, I already mentioned him. His story, it looks like it has, like Chris, very little to do with, everything going on in the game. Like, he's just there to help Helena, so it's really Helena's story that he's just there to help. And it was pretty much the same thing if you played Resident Evil 2. Like, Leon was just there to help. The story was mainly about Claire trying to find out about Chris, which made Claire the connecting factor to, Resident Evil 1. And then, and Ada, of course, like, Leon helped Ada, so you were more or less, like, while you were playing as Leon, there was those moments where you had to switch to Ada, and you actually saw the story, and you were playing as her, so it was like she was learning something, and it was more or less her mission. Leon's gameplay is definitely traditional horror, like it has the zombies and all. It's the creepy atmosphere. It felt very slow paced when I played the demo, at least. Like, it was showing off the combat more or less, but I noticed that, there was exploration going on with him. Maybe not puzzles, but exploration was there. Ada's gameplay, as far as we know from all the videos they've shown and everything, it'll be more like a puzzle horror. Yeah, puzzles will play a huge role in Ada's gameplay, so she's going to be seeing a lot of those. She's going to be feeling like Resident Evil 1, more or less. She'll have zombies. She has a crossbow, that's her special thing, so it can shoot explosive rounds and it can shoot normal rounds. She has some other skills as well, but I don't know all of them. I just know that she's going to be single player. Her gameplay will more or less have you going back and forth between rooms because, just like in traditional Resident Evils, you have these puzzles that have you going back and forth just to solve them half the time. And that's what Ada will bring once, people unlock that campaign. What will Chris have? His horror is more action based, but there's still horror there enough to show that they're trying to go to horror. Although the public demo didn't show much horror, there are parts of the game that actually do show it. And people are different, so what doesn't scare you will scare someone else. Like, I don't scare easily, but Resident Evil 6, they have 4 different things to try out, so maybe I'll find something that just comes close to scaring me. And if you didn't see Resident Evil Damnation, I think you should watch it because it sets everything up for Resident Evil 6 with Leon and Ada. Like, it basically shows you what they were going through, like what mission they were on. Yeah, they both had their own objectives, but it shows you more or less what they were up to just before things in Resident Evil 6 started. Like, and it takes place right before. It's not like it takes place a few years before and then flash forward a few years later. It takes place just a few months before, more or less around the same time. While when Chris goes in that one mission that was in that demo and things happen. So yeah, Chris has two timelines in his story, so it's pretty much like Resident Evil 3, a split timeline. Uh, Unlike Resident Evil 3, Chris is split between 6 months. Resident Evil 3 was split between a few days. So, that's definitely something different. And as far as the game, it's going to be about 40 hours long because there's 4 stories. They're each about 10 hours. So, there's enough content there to say, well, hey, to keep you busy, I mean. And of course, I love Resident Evil because of the fact that the older games are survival horror, and the new games have been more action based. This one, Capcom from the beginning has always said was going to be a dramatic horror, which would be a new genre in the sense that instead of using one type of horror, they're trying to use 4 different types. I think the big question now, though, is can they actually pull it off? And keep in mind that, while the demo does give people a taste of what they're going to be playing, those were some earlier builds, so hopefully, some of the bugs that were in the demo have been fixed. It's probably been more fine-tuned by now. And there's probably more news I can bring up, but I'll do that in another video because I'm almost out of time with this video. And I thought I would just update people with, this Resident Evil news. Of course, I'm a big Resident Evil fan, and I know there's a lot of other Resident Evil fans. But if you're a fan, I say support the game. And I can agree that, yes, if there's not enough horror, it sucks, because Resident Evil is supposed to have horror in it. But I would say, if you don't play the game, don't give feedback, that doesn't change, that won't get fixed. And it'll keep going down the more action route if you just leave it up to everyone else. Especially since a lot of the people that play games today, are these 14, 15-year-old kids that are into all these action games, and they're like, no, Resident Evil needs more action, that seem to think that everything needs action. Because I was actually on the Capcom website, and I was seeing things like, people were talking about games like Street Fighter, and how Street Fighter should have over-the-shoulder camera views. So when you're seeing comments like that, something's wrong. If you're leaving it up to people for that, then yeah, you're not going to get what you want. So this is all the more reason for, anyone that likes horror games, whether it's survival horror, action horror, or now dramatic horror in general. Go out there, play the game, give your feedback, and this will actually help the games get more of their feeling back. Look at Dead Space. Dead Space, I've never really played it, but the games do look fun. Now, Dead Space 3, I think I was at GameStop when I heard the guy say, we actually had to sacrifice horror in favor of action because people were complaining that it was too scary, It's like, wow, so you sacrifice horror from a horror game because people say it was too scary. I wonder how that helps, So, if you're watching my video at this point, congratulations. But anyway, at this point, I'm going to say, if you were watching my video at this point, up to now, think about it. If you don't think about it and then act on it like this, a change won't happen. A change can't happen if you don't do your part. We can't have, our own self-entitlement to things. We can't feel entitled. Because while video gaming, purchasing is the consumer service part, the part of making it is still an art. Anyway, I'm gonna leave my video here. I hope y'all think about this, and I'll make another video soon. Good night.